Thank you very much for the introduction and for the invitation to speak to you today about the Japanese-American experience. During World War II, you guys are studying World War II, I was a prisoner of war. I'm not kidding. I was held by my own country, though. That was the difference. Okay. But let me give you a little bit of background, okay? I graduated, I was born and raised in Watsonville, and I graduated from Watsonville High School in 1953, 12th grade, and I had gone just as far as I could go in Santa Cruz County. That was the educational level of Santa Cruz County until Cabrillo College came, and after that, the University of California at Santa Cruz. I am so grateful, and I'll tell you why. Santa Cruz County was a backward agricultural community. We were a reactionary community. Minorities had difficulties, particularly here in Santa Cruz. UCSC and Cabrillo College changed that. The intelligentsia, the faculty came, and today, I'm proud to say that Santa Cruz County is the second most progressive county in the nation behind San Francisco. But we weren't always like that. Because I remember right here on these grounds, the John Burt Society and the Minutemen, their militia group, were training squad tactics. I am so grateful to you all. But anyway, I'm here representing the Japanese American Citizens League, the Watsonville Santa Cruz chapter. And before I begin, I would like to read something to you. And it was written 7 months before the attack on Pearl Harbor. It was written by our leader, Mike Masooka. He was born in Fresno, but grew up in Utah. He wrote what was known as the Japanese-American Creed, and it was written into the congressional records on May 9th, 1941. He writes, "I am proud that I am an American of Japanese ancestry, for my very background makes me appreciate more fully the wonderful advantages of this country. I believe in her institutions, ideals, and traditions. I glory in her heritage. I boast of her history. I trust in her future. She has granted me liberties and opportunities such as no individual enjoys in this world today. She has given me an education befitting kings. She has entrusted me with a franchise. She has permitted me to build a home, to earn a livelihood, to worship, think, speak, and act as I please, as a free man, equal to every other man. Although some people may discriminate against me, I shall never become bitter or lose faith, for I know that such persons are not representative of the majority of the American people. True. I shall do all in my power to discourage such practices, but I shall do it in the American way, above board, in the open, through courts of law, by education, by proving myself to be worthy of equal treatment and consideration. I am firm in my belief that American sportsmanship and fair play will judge citizenship and patriotism on the basis of action and achievement, and not on the basis of physical characteristics. Because I believe in America, and I trust she believes in me, and because I have received innumerable benefits from her, I shall pledge myself to do honor to her at all times and in all places, to support her Constitution, to obey her laws, to respect her flag, to defend her against all enemies, foreign or domestic, to actively assume my duties and obligations as a citizen, cheerfully, and without any reservations whatsoever, in the hope that I may become a better American in a greater America. The Japanese-American Creed. Is it still valid today? Yes. It defines who we are as Americans. After the attack on the Trade Center, the Twin Towers, 9/11, there was talk about rounding up Arab and Muslim Americans in this country. And to the credit of George W. Bush, President of the United States, he said, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do to the Arabs and Muslim Americans in this country like what we did to Norm Mineta and his family. Norm Mineta was Secretary of Transportation. Arab Americans have served this country faithfully. They served on Eisenhower's and Patton's staff during World War II. They commanded troops in Bosnia. They command troops in Iran and Africa and Afghanistan today. Arab Americans. Some of you might know Ralph Nader. Some of you think that his contribution was running for the presidency of the United States. Well, he's important in that sense, but he's more important in the sense that he's there in your car with you because he was a whistleblower. Every time there was an accident, it was blamed on the driver, not on the car manufacturer. He made our cars safer. There's a gentleman by the name of former Senator George Mitchell. He brokered the peace in Northern Ireland between the Protestants and the Catholics. They've been fighting for hundreds of years. He brought peace to Northern Ireland. And right this minute as I speak, he's working on the peace between the Palestinians and the Arabs. Palestinians and the Israelis, And if we could conquer that, win the peace there, we will have solved much of the problems in the Middle East. Some of you might have seen the commercial on the St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. That was started by Danny Thomas, an Arab American. Some of you might have worn Hager clothing. Some of you who are football fans might remember Doug Flutie, Boston College, the Hail Mary pass that won the game in the last few seconds. Or Helen Thomas. She's one of the White House correspondents that always challenges the president. I remember in December teaching at Watsonville High School, we were all so excited because the Challenger was going up and aboard was Krista McAuliffe. The Challenger exploded. Krista McAuliffe is an Arab American. Nearly 2/3 of all Arab Americans are Christians. They have contributed as Nobel Prize winners, actors, musicians, scientists, engineers. Let me ask you guys this. What does a terrorist look like? Could look like anybody, huh? Remember the Oklahoma City bombing? You know who did it? Timothy McVeigh, a white dude. And when that happened, they were taking people off the airplanes who looked Arabic. It was a white guy. Anybody could be a terrorist. A bully in the 4th grade is a terrorist. They thought I was a terrorist. And I went to prison for 3.5 years. My family and I. This is my prison number. 12524D. That's my federal prison number. I was never charged with a crime. Never. Never had an attorney represent me. I never had a day in court. I was guilty of what? How I look. How I look. Frankly, I think I'm kind of handsome. Stretching the imagination a little bit, okay. But should people go to prison because of the way they look or dress? No. No. The high school, I never enforced a dress code. I didn't care how they dressed so long as they were clean and presentable. I wanted to know what was up here. I wanted them to think. Anyway, the Japanese-American experience. It was said of the Japanese, the Japanese race is an alien race which can never be assimilated into the American way of life. There's nothing of value of Japanese culture. Nothing of value. We could never assimilate. Well, they wouldn't let us either, you know. Asians couldn't marry whites. It was against the law. My mother and father could not own property. They're citizens of Japan. Asians couldn't become citizens of the United States. There was a guy by the name of Takeo Ozawa, 1922. He came from Japan. He loved this country. He wanted to be a citizen of the United States. And the Supreme Court says, no, you can't. You're not a Caucasian. The following year, an Indian from India sued for his citizenship. He's a Caucasian. Supreme Court says, yeah, you're Caucasian, but you got to be white. Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, was not an Asian. He was a Caucasian. Nothing of value of Japanese culture. Let me ask you guys this. How many of you guys can use chopsticks? What's the matter with you? Come on, we got to get you to a restaurant. Okay. It's fun, right? Using chopsticks, okay? It's fun. It really is. Eating should be an adventure, okay? Okay. How many of you eaten sushi? Oh, really? Sashimi? Wow. Wasabi? Yeah, wasabi. Yeah. There you go, okay. How many of you know karate? Karate! Gee. Kara is empty. Te is hand, empty hand. Pat Morita, he died about 3 years ago. He was my friend. I could have doubled for him. You know, all I need to do is grow a little protein. Karaoke. That's kara, empty, okay. Comes from orchestra. You know, there's no orchestra. It's just, you're singing to a tape. And it's fun, right? It's fun. How many of you know what origami is? You can't get out of the 5th grade without folding a crane. And when you give a crane that you made to someone, you wish them long life. Long life. That's nice, huh? How many of you have written haiku? 5, 7, 5. And that's fun. It's challenging and it's fun. Nothing of value of Japanese culture? Oh, come on. Give me a break. It was a put down. When I was teaching at Watsonville High School in 1968, the cafeteria, because our clientele began to change, the cafeteria began to serve tacos. And townspeople complained about Mexican food being served in our cafeteria. Mexican food isn't any good for you. Mexican food will make you fat. And I'm going, oh, here we go again. This time they're picking on the Mexicans. Tacos? You got cereal, you got what else? Beef, vegetables, cheese. You got all 4 food groups? It's one of the best foods you can eat. But it was a put down. Discrimination. Anyway, it was difficult growing up in the 1930s and 40s in California. California was a racist state. It was hard. The newspapers were against us, even the Sentinel. My mother would not wrap garbage in a San Francisco Examiner. The garbage was too good. The McClatchy papers, Sacramento Bees, they said they were 100% American paper, and then when you read the articles, they were anti-Jew, anti-Catholic, anti-blacks, anti-minorities. And what's left? WASP. You've heard of WASP? White Anglo-Saxon Protestant. Catholics, they helped build this nation. It's on the muscles of the Irish. And yet, when there was a depression, and people were unemployed, there was all kinds of signs, this is no Irish need apply. Well, some people kept those signs and they turned them around and used the back side. You know what they wrote on the back side? No Japs allowed. Discrimination. The Elks Club. You know about the KKK. The Elks Club was strictly white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. When I joined the faculty at Watsonville High School, I'm listening to the faculty meeting, and these guys are talking, and what they were so proud. They had just blackballed a Chinese American, Ernie Wong, from joining the Elks. Today, the Elks is different. It's open to everybody. Women too. A lot of changes, wonderful changes have taken place. Hollywood movies picked on minorities. Great movies like Gone with the Wind. Blacks are serving white masters and talking dumb. The days before Denzel Washington and Will Smith. Mexicans, they were banditos, shoot them up, bang, bang. Mañana, they're dirty, lazy. I worked besides Mexican Americans. I know how hard they work. But Hollywood didn't do them justice. What about Asians? Asians, we were always cunning, deceitful, gangsters, Some of my friends trying to make it in Hollywood movies, and the only roles they get is Mr. Hashimoto, is Tibetan monks or gangsters. And this Michael Idemoto, he's got a really kind, gentle face. You'll never make it as a gangster. And if you didn't know any blacks, Hispanics, Asians, and all you saw were Hollywood movies, you didn't like them, you didn't trust them. That's how we grew up. But we had some friends who really knew us. Some of the best friends we had were school teachers. And some of the best friends you'll ever have will be school teachers. You remember your high school teachers, your college profs, because they're here to help. Take your homework assignments seriously. Anyway. I went to prison because they thought I was Japanese. I'm not Japanese. My mother was Japanese. My father was Japanese. But I'm not Japanese. So if I'm not Japanese, what am I? I'm an American of Japanese ancestry. I'm an American In February, I was skiing. Eat your heart out. I was skiing in Japan. I'm a foreigner in Japan. I was shopping in London. To them, I'm a Yank. But to many in this country, I'm Japanese. I'm not Japanese. I've never been Japanese. But I went to prison with the whole family. I was suspect. Oh, I was 6.5 years old. I'm 74 now. What was it like for us? We did an event called Liberty Lost, Lessons in Loyalty. Lessons in Loyalty had 2 parts, okay? And the second part dealt with those who were loyal to us. Notice what we have running through our American flag. What is it? Barbed wire. Much of what I learned about the Japanese in this region is from Sandy Leighton, a college professor at Cabrillo College. Chinese, Japanese, Filipinos, Mexicans, Italian, Croatians, Portuguese, we all contributed to California agriculture. Okay. Okay.
So just tell me next and I'll get to you.
All right. This is an American farmer. Japs are Hindus. Japs is a derogatory term. Okay. Not wanted. There were anti-alien associations. This is of the Japanese school in Watsonville in the Parha Valley, where Japanese American students were not allowed to go to school with their white counterparts. So a separate school in a messy district. The school district provided the teacher. Some of these people are still alive. Shikuma brothers, they're in their 90s. Now when you think of segregated schools, you think of the South, about blacks and whites. No, in California, throughout, against Chinese and Japanese, there were segregated schools. This is my family. My father, okay, he was from Fukuoka, Japan, came to the United States in 1899, went to Hawaii first. His first wife divorced him because the work was too hard. So he came to California. My mother had an unhappy marriage, and she became a picture bride, and she married my father on the day she got off the boat in San Francisco, having seen him for the first time. Brothers number 1 and 2. 2 is missing. They were sent to Japan when they were 6 and 3 years of age because we didn't know where we were going to be welcomed to stay here. So Dad wanted to send them to Japan to have at least a basic Japanese education. Brother number 1 was given to grandparents, but the grandparents died. He was pretty much on his own. Brother number 2 was given to an uncle who had no children. That's not uncommon. Brother number 1 was going to be drafted into the Japanese army. He didn't want that, so he borrowed money and got back here. He's a draft dodger, but of the Japanese army. Brother number 2 fought and died for the Japanese. Brothers number 3 and 4, they graduated from Watsonville High School. After school each day, they went to another school, a Japanese school. So when the war broke out, they will volunteer to fight in the United States Army against the Japanese. They'll go to the Military Intelligence Service. Brother number 5, he was a freshman at Watsonville High School. He's going to be killed in camp, and I'll explain that a little later. Brother number 6, graduated in 1950. Korean War started in 1950. He fought in the Korean War. That chubby little guy, that's me. I know, I'm so cute. I don't know what happened. My father died soon after this picture was taken. He died before I was 3. The FBI came into our homes looking for incriminating evidence. They knew where we were because in 1940 there was a federal census. And the Census Bureau shared the information with the FBI, which is illegal. Anyway, father could be arrested and sent to a separate prison. We had to turn in all of our cameras, weapons, if we had any shortwave radios, all radios actually, flashlights, we might be signaling the enemy off the coast here. The FBI wanted to know about this postcard. Well, we all had postcards from relatives in Japan. Jack Matsuoka was a sophomore in high school. Because the cameras were taken, his sketches become tremendously important. This guy was arrested because of his hobby. He liked to make model airplanes. When they were arrested, they went to North Dakota, Bismarck, North Dakota area. Shig Kizuka's father was arrested. Mr. Kizuka was the leader of the Japanese Presbyterian Church. The Buddhist temple minister and the judo instructors, yeah, they were arrested, but so were leaders of the Presbyterian Church. So his son, who was a senior in high school, had to take over the family, grandmother, mother, kid sister, and kid brother. The newspapers clamored for our removal. General DeWitt was the one who said, a Jap's a Jap, it doesn't make any difference whether he's an American citizen or not, he can't be trusted. And he had the ear of the President of the United States. Even though J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI director, said, Mr. President, we don't need to do this. Nothing is happening in the Japanese community. And Francis Biddle, who was the Attorney General, said, Mr. President, I don't think we can do this. Well, it was done. Earl Warren, who was the Attorney General, said that the American-born were more dangerous than the Japanese-born. And the newspapers loved that. And he parlayed that into the governorship of California. He later became, and I mean this sincerely, a great Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. When you guys study the 1960s and the civil rights movement, he's going to be an important player. These are three of our heroes, Gordon Hayabashi, Min Yasui, and Fred Korematsu. What happened to us was legal, according to the Supreme Court. If it's a military necessity, we're never mentioned by race. So what does it mean? It means that next time you guys can go. Any one of you guys. We had Japantowns all over. There were over 40 of them in California. We had to get rid of our merchandise. There were posters placed where we had to, that ordered us to leave. We had 4 days to pack in Watsonville. So we had to get rid of the merchandise in the stores, or if we had farm equipment. There were a lot of cartoons like this, okay, buck teeth, slant eyes, and glasses, stereotyping. Sometimes a hideous face was placed on the body of a gorilla or a rat. I saw one not too long ago where they put Barack Obama's face on a gorilla. Okay, we said, stop that. Stop it. Cartoon wanted to help in their patriotic duty. Caucasian, a Chinese, and a Japanese. Caucasians, okay, Chinese were allies of the United States during World War II. Chinese face, the mean-looking Japanese face. The Japanese, he's more primitive. He's got more hair on his body. You know, he's more animal-like. He's got more fur. Okay? He's got a massive jaw. You can always pick a Chinese from a Japanese in a crowd because a Chinese walks upright like a Caucasian. A Japanese shuffles his feet. And then you can always have them take off their shoes and socks if they're wearing any. And if their big toe is separate from the other toes, then you know he's Japanese because Japanese wear zoris, or what you girls call flip-flops. Those are Japanese in design. And if you girls wear flip-flops for any length of time, you guys are going to start looking like Japanese, you know. Kidding? Okay. Life magazine wanted to help. Tojo, okay, in Chinese down here. Earthly yellow complexion, Japanese. Parchment yellow complexion, Chinese. You got that? You're now resident experts on how to tell the difference between Chinese and Japanese. Can you tell me what earthly yellow is? Or parchment yellow? This is in black and white? Poor Chinese never has rosy cheeks. Okay. Japanese, sometimes rosy. This is so stupid. This is so stupid. I can't tell the difference between Chinese, Koreans, and Japanese. I have to ask. Why not? If you had 1/16 Japanese blood, Asians couldn't marry whites. That would be 5 generations. We didn't have anybody in the 5th generations. I tell the story of my friend Dina Ruiz. She's 1/4 Japanese. She was raised by the Ruiz family. She was an orphan. She and her children would have to go. You know who I'm talking about? Mrs. Clint Eastwood. Trucks were provided. Okay. We were luckier. We didn't have to go in trucks. Some of the soldiers were very friendly and helpful. They were helpful to the elderly. They played hide and seek with some of the children, gave candy to the children. We were very grateful for that. We went by Greyhound bus from Watsonville to Salinas. This little girl, okay, she was 12 years old. She was so distraught because she was leaving her friends and her home. She suffered a heart attack in Berkeley, and she was taken to that church, and she died there. This guy was there was one way in which you could become an American citizen, that was to fight in World War I. And this guy fought in World War I. He became an American citizen. He was protesting. He wore his uniform. His citizenship was taken away from him. You could only take what you can carry. What's in here? Bedding. All right? And so you had 2 suitcases. One girl who just graduated from high school, she said, "Oh, Mr. Hashimoto, it was easy to pack. We were poor. I only had 3 dresses, 1 for Sunday school, 1 for school, 1 for work. I took my favorite book of poetry. I took a dictionary, and the rest of the suitcase was filled with sanitary napkins because I figured the Army wasn't going to provide," and she was right. I was a little taller than this kid. Whenever you see a soldier with fixed bayonet, that means he's supposed to be ready for action. We had a lot of young mothers who took diapers, baby clothes, formula, maybe a toy or 2. These 2 were just recently honored last year in Seattle. They're still alive. The mother is 90 years of age. This little girl, she's a grandmother herself now. Okay. We had tags. Even the bags had tags. On the back side of your tags are the names of the 10 camps we were in. I had a little dog. We boarded up the house. We didn't sell it. We gave the keys to a friend, Stacy Irwin, she was an attorney, and I gave my dog to her too. The dog wouldn't eat very much, and so it seemed like the dog was going to die. So she wrote to us, Stacy did, asking if she could send the dog to us in Poston, Arizona. And the dog was sent to us. And I was so grateful because this dog was my best friend. One day it disappeared, and for 3 days we looked for her, and I was really brokenhearted. But then one day she showed up. I was so happy. I was so, I thought coyotes ate her. Anyway, I brought the dog home with me, and she died in my arms when I was a junior in school. She studied with me. The kid in the Cub Scout uniform who had his bat stolen, taken away from him by the police, MP. He has his ball here and his glove. This was a true story in San Jose. To whom? Norman Mineta. Okay. He was that Cub Scout. He's 3 years older than I am. One of those before and after shots. Okay. Tony Hernandez was my best friend in kindergarten, 1st grade, and he welcomed me back in the 5th grade. He says, "Where were you?" Had to explain. In Santa Anita Racetrack, that was for the Los Angeles people. They stayed in horse stalls, many of them. For the people in the San Francisco Bay Area, there was a racetrack called Tanforan. It's in San Bruno. There's a shopping center there now. But these girls who had to stay in the horse stalls, they cried to sleep each night because of the stench of horse manure and urine. We were luckier in the Monterey Bay region. We went to the Salinas Assembly Center. There were over 3,600 of us there. Horse stalls are here, but we didn't stay in those. We stayed in these barracks over here. The grandstand is here. There's a baseball diamond here and a baseball diamond here, but we weren't allowed to use it. My brother was playing baseball. He was at bat. He hit the ball, ran toward first base. The ball and the first baseman collided. My brother's skull was crushed at the temple. He died. He was complaining about headaches and he died. And we had his funeral, cremated his body, left the ashes at the mortuary, and then after the war, when it was over, one of the first things we did was visit that mortuary, get the ashes back, and bury him in Watsonville. Yeah, this is where we were unloading, okay. The machine gun tower nest at Salinas Assembly Center, it was there for our protection, but the damn thing was pointed at us. In the 3.5 years that we were in prison, the guard shot and killed 8 and wounded 20 others. Behind the fence. Yeah, there's a story of Ralph Lazo, who was a Mexican-American youngster who went into camp with his Japanese-American friends. And because he could speak Japanese when he was in the Army, he's fought in the Pacific War. He even got the Japanese to surrender. Guy was a fantastic war hero. He became a school teacher in the Unified School District of Los Angeles. So we had many friends. When I see barracks like this, I think of farm labor camp, because when we were gone, there was a shortage of labor, and so the United States government asked the Mexican government to bring up workers under the Bracero program. We stood in line for lunch and breakfast, lunch, dinner, and repeated the whole process again. It was boring. We stayed in Salinas for 3 months. We had outhouses. Okay, men and women used the same one, so we rigged up a signal, and the signal was when the dinner bell rang, we go to eat, the guys go to eat, and the girls go to the potty. Okay, boom, and reverse the situation after the meal. There were all kinds of rumors about what was going to happen to us. We're going to be taken to the desert and maybe killed over there. Okay, and then when we're going to the desert, we're convinced we're going to be killed. But meanwhile, okay, we had entertainment. We had to provide our own. And you know what this is? Sumo wrestling, right? Some friends sent us some softball equipment. We're very grateful for that. Friends came to visit us, and many of them were school teachers. And they encouraged us. They wrote letters of recommendations. Some of the best friends we had were school teachers. Some of them would have their tires slashed. That was really bad. The windshield broken was not as bad as the tire slash. Why? Speed limit in the United States during World War II was 35 miles an hour, not to save gasoline, but to save the rubber tires. Anything that came from overseas was hard to get. Bananas, pineapples, coffee, tea, tapioca, whatever, okay? T.S. McQuitty was the principal of Watsonville High School. He managed to get into the camp. For what purpose? To deliver the diplomas to the 30 kids who should have graduated with their classmates in 1942. Class of 1992 at Watsonville High School, when they found out about this, they decided to invite them back and have a formal graduation. And they did, and that was really nice. We're the first in the nation to do that. We were ordered to leave. The train came to pick up 500 at a time, so it took a whole week for us to move. Didn't make any difference how sick you were, you had to go. The last train pulled out on the 4th of July, and these soldiers, okay, saw us off and then marched in a parade in Salinas for Independence Day. This kid had a t-shirt. Superman. Superman's been around a long time. We went from cool, foggy Monterey Bay to Poston, Arizona. Poston and Gila River were on Indian reservations, and today we still work with the Native Americans. 2 in Arkansas. Oops, that's okay. And okay. 2 in California. Manzanar is famous. Tule Lake was the largest. Topaz, Granada, Heart Mountain, and Minidoka. There are actually 69 different detention camps altogether. This is supposed to be the brunch from the Bay Area. Okay, it was over 120 degrees when we got off the train at Poston. Half the group had heat stroke. This is going to be our home for the next 3 years, 3 months. 4 families to 1 barrack. There are no plants around here because it's been bulldozed. So every time there was a little whiff of wind, we'd have a dust storm. About 280 people in 1 block. Stuff the mattress with straw, but be careful of scorpions living in the straw. Okay. Mom slept in 1 corner, boys in another. If I had sisters, they would sleep in another corner. The room was 20 by 25 feet. The wood was green when it was laid down, so it shrank in the heat, and so dust came through the floor. The orphans and those who were living in foster homes were brought to Manzanar if they had 1/16 Japanese blood. What threat to national security? I don't know. Sandstorms and dust storms, we had them all the time. In fact, it ruined the dinner meal for Christmas in 1942. We did have flush toilets, but every time you sat down, you had to check for black widow spiders. We were allowed 8 squares of toilet tissue a day. That was the Army ration. There were no stalls for toilets or for showers. Privacy is lacking. We ate mess hall style across from another family. You didn't discuss family issues at dinner time because another family is listening. Rattlesnakes, yeah, they loved the shade underneath the barracks. We would catch them, kill them, skin them, cook them, and eat them. If you put soy sauce on it, it tastes good. Okay, teriyaki. Scorpions, yeah, the little ones would be hiding in our shoes, and every morning we had to check our shoes. The bigger ones, we'd tie a thread around them and play with them during the day, or maybe give them to our teachers. Okay, they were kind of fun. Finally, okay, partitions with bedspreads or sheets or blankets. Furniture we made out of scrap wood. A dentist, Dr. Ito. Doctors and dentists made $19 a month for the duration of the war. The soldier got $21 a month. No one was supposed to make more than the soldier. At the end of the war, the soldier, the lowest pay was $50 a month, but ours remained the same. My mother worked as an assistant cook. She worked for $16 a month, worked 10 hours a day. We figured for 5 cents an hour. We needed the money. Why? Because we didn't sell our house. We had to pay taxes to Santa Cruz County and the city of Watsonville. Otherwise, we lose our house. Doctors, okay, complained about the lack of medicine. Soldiers got it first. That's understandable. Others got it next, and then we were last in line. My oldest brother got tuberculosis in camp, one of 153. So he didn't serve in World War II. We brought water in from the Colorado River to hold the dust down, but there was another reason for that, and that was to show the Indians how to farm the land. We began to farm, and we grew vegetables for the other camps as well. We even had our own county fair, a contest on who could grow the best vegetables. Baseball, yeah, that was one of the games that Japanese loved to play, and they played it in camp, but our family wasn't that excited. All you need is a rim and a ball, and you could play basketball. Oh, okay. And the thing is that these guys had fancy uniforms. My uniform was made from discarded mattress cover. Toys R Us, we made toys. The adults made toys for us. We had a toy library where you can check out a toy, play with it for a few hours, and then bring it back. And if you broke it, that's okay. Somebody will fix it. All right? Not a bad idea. Ikebana classes, okay, one problem. with ikebana flower arranging classes on the desert. No flowers. So they made them out of paper, okay? All of these things were made, okay? Our people were very artistic. They made it from toilet paper, ironwood, scrap wood, part of a tree. Seashells. What, Sierra Nevada mountains? Oh yeah, it was below the sea at one time, okay? Looks, okay, like a camellia, but actually it's made from little clam shells that were bleached and dyed pink. Scrap of wood. It's called the Art of Gaman, Perseverance. 4th of July parade, yeah, we had them, led by the by the Boy Scouts. When I learned the flag salute, I learned it like this, you guys. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. We changed during the war to this. How come? His was palm down, ours was palm up. So we changed, okay? Anyway, see the teacher? She's looking up. The last words were liberty and what? Justice for all. Nobody wanted to teach U.S. history. Yeah, tell us about the Constitution again, teach. It didn't apply to us. Who's this? Santa Claus. One of the wonderful things that happened is that school children from all over the country sent our children presents. That was so nice. Buy Christmas seals. That's me. You have to take my word for it. Okay. Our adults made benches. For kindergarten nursery, there's no pencil, paper, crayon, paints, toys, puzzles. Not even a qualified teacher. Finally, California sent us some books to Arizona. I don't remember 2nd and 3rd grade. It's a blank. I remember 4th grade. We were allowed to have a camera, and we had a yearbook. And the theme was, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. We still believe in the Constitution of the United States, but the people who were supposed to uphold the Constitution weren't doing their job. Graduating class of 1945, that's also their prison picture. They're from Watsonville and Salinas and Sacramento, Lodi. This is my prison picture. I'm in the 4th grade. See if you can pick me out. I'm in the front row. While you guys are looking, okay, I want to point out Miss Cooper. She was a Quaker from Pennsylvania. I loved her. What's this kid doing here? Harold, he was the principal's son. They were from Hawaii. Okay, this is me. That's not me because that's a girl. Okay. And you can tell that's me because he's got leadership written all over his face. Freedom was just on the other side. Okay, this is Manzanar. You know what these guys are looking at? Death Valley. Guard towers all have a tendency to look alike, okay? But we had 5,000 Japanese Americans in the Army when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. Many of them had their guns taken away and given mops because we had the first peacetime draft. But we wanted to fight in this war. We wanted to be a part of it. It was important. And so the 142nd Regimental Combat Team will be formed, the most decorated unit for its size and length of service. It was known as the Purple Heart Battalion. Thousands volunteered from Hawaii. You see, 120,000 of us were in prison who were living in Washington, Oregon, California. There's 158,000 living in the territory of Hawaii. It wasn't a state yet. They didn't go to prison. They're in the war zone. How come? Their general said it wasn't necessary, and there's a close, friendlier relationship, and they didn't have a vile newspaper system like we did with the McClatchy Hearst papers. And, Bruce McPherson, who grandfather owned and operated the Sentinel, once apologized to me, and I said, no. You don't have to apologize. You weren't even born yet. You can't be responsible for what earlier generations did. We're not going to lay the guilt trip on people. Question of loyalty. Will you fight for the United States, etc.? Some of our guys said no. These guys refused to report to the draft. They were tried and convicted and sent to prison. President Truman pardoned them after the war. Truman's no loyalty oath is ever going to prove who's loyal and who's not. It's action, not a piece of paper. Some of these guys fought in the Korean War. They were not cowards. Every camp had an honor roll. General Eisenhower and General Patton didn't want Japanese-American troops, but Mark Clark says, I'll take them. And if the guys fought so well, he said, send me more. These two mothers had 4 in the military. If one of them is killed, then one of the stars becomes a gold star. She'll be known as a Gold Star Mother. This is the patch that the Army came up with. A yellow arm and a bloody dagger, and the guys hated it. It was so racist. And so they had a contest. And Hashimoto of Watsonville came up with this design. He says, this is what we'll fight for. Liberty. And Daniel Inouye says, Moss, see that shape? It's in the shape of a coffin. And a lot of guys died wearing it. In one particular battle in northern France, 211 Texans were rescued by the 442nd. 184 were killed rescuing 211, and over 600 were wounded. A lot of the guys that were wounded, they patched up and then sent right back into battle. This is what you get. If you're killed, your family gets the Purple Heart. The general asked for the formation of the 442nd. He took one look at it and said, what happened? I want them all here. And the colonel said, sir, that's all that remains of the 442nd. Some rifle companies of 200 were reduced to 11 guys showing up. Battle took place in November. One of the guys that was killed was Henry Umezaki of Watsonville. He had just graduated from high school. His older brother was in the Army too, visited the gravesite. There were 4 sons, 4 in the military, 4 in the 442nd. Mother wanted the body brought back home, and in 1948 the body was brought back home. And he's buried in his beloved Pajaro Valley. Harry Mondokoro was my neighbor. His father had died, his sister had died. It was just Harry and his mother. He didn't have to fight in this war. He was sole surviving son. You guys remember a movie called Saving Private Ryan? Harry didn't have to fight in this war. He was killed. We had his funeral in camp. He was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. There's only one higher, and that's the Congressional Medal of Honor. His mother is wearing the medal. She has her Bible in hand. And this photograph always makes me cry. She gives her one and only son to this country, and she can't be a citizen of the United States. She had no relatives left. She went back to Japan and died there. In 1952, 7 years after World War II, my mother could become a citizen of the United States. The law was changed. Henry Dahl was born right here in West Santa Cruz. He was one of our heroes too. I put his medals in a case for him. He too was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. He said, "Moss, I saw the Statue of Liberty when I left. I saw the Statue of Liberty when I came back. A lot of guys didn't come back. Last April, I went to the Statue of Liberty to pay my respects." Shigekizuka, his father was arrested. He volunteered for the full 42nd, and in Italy, he was one of our heroes. At night, they climbed this 3,000-foot mountain and surprised the Germans at the Gothic line. Japanese Americans opened up Dachau concentration camp. Japanese Americans had their families in a concentration camp in America. There's a close relationship between Japanese Americans and the Holocaust survivors. In fact, we have an organization. It's called Sushi and Bago. I love it. How many were killed in the Holocaust? Over 11 million, of which nearly 6 million were Jews. I want you to remember the 11 million. Don't forget the other 5. Please, don't forget the other 5. I do have to tell you this story. Guy has his arm blown off. He's got a submachine gun, but he's got his arm blown off. After the war's over, he's recuperating. He's in Oakland. He's going to get a haircut. He goes to the barber shop, and the barber says, "We don't cut Jap hair." This is Senator Daniel K. Inouye, Congressional Medal of Honor winner. The story of a Japanese American who gets aboard a streetcar, and a lady says, "I want this Jap soldier off the bus." And the driver told the lady, "Lady, apologize to this American soldier or get off my bus." She got off the bus. We do have some friends. Okay.
Let's thank Moss.
Thank you.